checked. Hey, and welcome back to my channel. This is Debbie. We are back for another reaction to the Johnny Depp versus the Star trial. Today was day 13. So I apologize for the technical issues yesterday. Hopefully this is better. I think I might have been on the wrong setting on my microphone, so please let me know. Hopefully this is better. I changed the setting, so fingers crossed it's better. But yes, let's get into it so this video isn't too long. Fuck off, seriously. So yeah, there was a text message exchange between her and her mother, Paige Parsons. Her texted her mom saying, "Dealing with Johnny's spiral, it's terrible, Mom. I don't know what to do." And she goes on to say, "He's nuts, Mom. Violent and crazy. I am heartbroken that this is who I love." Her mother says she should tell her father, David, but her texts back to say, "I can't tell Dad." Heard says she trusted her mother but didn't know whether her dad would react violently. Heard clarifies she means violently towards Depp. A later text to her mother says, "My heart is broken. I'm okay physically. JD didn't hit me or anything last night. I told him that would be if he did, and it worked last night. But I'm scared by what I see and who I see now. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde on a binge. He's not violent to me." Talking about Depp. Then she tells Miss Wash she sent this text to her mother as she had sent pictures of her bruises to her mother but didn't want her father to react badly. Heard also sent another text in which she says there was no physical abuse, writing, "It's okay, Mom. He's not being violent with me. He's just even raging in general. And the crazy mood swings and binges are really difficult for me to handle." She tells Miss Wash she knew about that firsthand, as my father was like this to my mother growing up. Heard sounds emotional as she explains to Miss Wass what she meant by a text she sent to her mother, saying, "I feel like I'm on a very fascinating train that's about to explode, but I don't want to jump off and leave my love behind. So I stay on the train, even if I know it's about to explode." She goes on to describe what she says are two distinct parts to Depp's personality. She says when he was sober, he was generous, loving, a remarkable man when he's like that. The other side of him is a monster. I always held out hope he would get clean and sober. She again clarifies that in texts where she told her mother Depp didn't hit her, she was simply trying to stop her father from finding out about the alleged domestic violence. Side note, that is actually a direct contradiction to Amber Heard's deposition in her divorce case, because I remember her saying she started telling her mom very early on about the abuse and saying that he hit her. So now she's saying that she only told her a small part. Doesn't add up. Amber Heard describes a scene when she was met entering the house, and sorry, this is going back to Australia. Then they discuss the 3-day hostage situation in Australia. Heard describes a scene she says she was met with on entering the house. There was mashed potato and gravy smeared on the door outside. There was bird in the house. It scared me to death when it entered the room. It must have flown in a window. There was blood everywhere. I thought it was from my feet, but it wasn't. I thought it was paint, a kind of brownish color on the walls. It was dark brown at first, then lightened out to a milky brown color. She says the writing, which was all the way down the stairs and stairwell, was letters, and she can make out some words written in English. There was blood on the walls and lampshades and everywhere with written message. Side note: blood doesn't get milky or with time. It actually gets darker. It starts off bright red and then it gets into a dark rusty shade. So it couldn't have been blood on the walls then, I don't think. She says there was raw meat everywhere, there was blood everywhere, there was so much glass you couldn't even walk. It's all very, it's very extreme, it's very over the top. Miss Wass asks if Heard threw a bottle and damaged Depp's finger. Heard says no. She says it occurred about 24 hours into his binge, his rage. She says it was after he held me up against the fridge and said over and over again that he wished he had never met me and I'd ruined his life. He said I made him drink and I always did this. She goes on. He held a bottle up to my face and said he'd cut me. At some point I pushed him and tried to push his arms away. Heard tells the court Depp damaged his finger when he repeatedly punched the wall with a cream Bakelite phone, which she says smashed into many pieces. She says at the time she didn't realize that was when he cut his finger, but that is what she believes to have happened. Okay, side note. So, again, the story changes many times on the finger incident. First, she says she wasn't there. Now she says he was. First it went from him smashing the phone. Now it's from him punching her with the phone. And from the pictures that they showed of the house, there's no smashed phone. The phone was completely fine. So, again, not telling the truth. Then they referred to a recording where, in the conversation, Depp talks about their honeymoon, saying it was good apart from one argument in San Francisco. He also talks about their arguments and says there can be no physical violence towards each other. He says when they fall out, they need to physically separate from each other in order to cool off and avoid conflict. He goes on to say, otherwise we will fucking kill each other, or worse, fucking break up. So that sounds to me like a mature way of handling conflict. Take some time apart to cool off, which from what we've heard so far from Amber, that used to piss her off even more. So it sounds like she was very emotionally immature, in my opinion. Miss Wasp puts it to her that her friends, including neighbor Rocky Pennington, trashed the penthouse and said it was Depp who had done it in order to frame him. And Hurt says, no, this is not the case. And this is to do with when the cops showed up. Then the court was shown a photo taken, which shows Hurt on the left of the photo, and Miss Wasp asked if she was wearing makeup, and she says, yes, I was wearing makeup, absolutely. Miss Wasp asks, do you ever go to the house without makeup? Hurt laughs and says, no, I live in LA. The judge asks for clarification on why this is. Hurt answers, I'm recognizable, or a celebrity, and whatever you want to call it. So I never go out of the house without makeup in case I'm photographed. Side note, celebrity, girl, you're C-list at best, and the only times you're ever photographed are the times that you call the paparazzi on yourself. And it's very clear with all your staged paparazzi pics in which you're looking right at them and smiling and posing. Girl, we know, we're on to you. Then they discuss the details of the domestic abuse becoming public knowledge. Hurt says, I didn't want to talk about everything that happened in our marriage or relationships. I didn't want the world or his kids to know who he was or what he could do. Earlier this week, Hurt told Depp's lawyer, I was trying to save him the embarrassment and this, quite frankly. Hurt now clarifies and says she was talking about the current court case when she said, and this, and adding, I meant no offense to these proceedings. Miss Wasp asks if her career has benefited from the case. Hurt answers, what woman has ever benefited from being the victim of domestic violence? Miss Wasp asks if she has benefited financially. Hurt says, no. I entered into a marriage without a pre or post-nuptial agreement in a no-fault state. I was entitled to 50%. Miss Wasp's final question is, have you told the truth to this court? Hurt says, absolutely. Side note, absolutely has her career benefited from this. Even at the time while she was dating Johnny, no one really knew who she was. It wasn't until she went to the court and did that whole TRO hearing with TMZ there that she really started to get her name in the public, and then she tried to paint herself as the victim and a hero for all abuse victims. That is when her profile really started to go off. Like, before she dated Johnny, she wasn't going to the Met Gala, she wasn't doing all those things, no one knew who she was. So for her to say she hasn't benefited is absolutely a lie. Because of her making those statements, she became the L'Oreal Women of Worth and all this mess. So that's just simply not true. Oh, I forgot to mention that Amber Heard actually said that when it comes to the incident with Keith Richards, the disco bloodbath, she wanted to change the date from 8th of March to sometime in late March. Conveniently, when her sister went on the stand today, she also says that she wanted to adjust a few details in her statement. It says the first is around the painting incident, which is initially said to be 8th of March 2013. She says she now wishes to say this took place at a later date in March. Exactly what her sister Amber said, which is super convenient that how on the same day that you both decided to say that, because yesterday the Miss Laws showed that date, it could not have possibly occurred on that date. So now you want to switch up and act brand new. There's no collusion happening there. No, not at all. Whitney says the Second Amendment is around the alleged damage to a Tasia Van Ree painting. She says the damage was not the signature, but to the back of the painting. And the last amendment was about a entertainment publication, which she said Depp believed she had leaked private information to. She says she originally believed that to be People magazine, but now understands it to have been E! News. Whitney says she was first living with Heard in the Eastern Columbia buildings when she first started dating Johnny, but she later moved in with her partner. She says she moved in around 2014 and moved out after Heard and married Depp in February 2015, and then spent more time there after January 2016. Miss Laws puts it to Whitney that Miss Laws puts it to Whitney that while she lived at close quarters with the couple and never actually witnessed violence between them apart from the staircase incident, which Whitney agrees to. Miss Laws says the only person injured in that was Depp, and that the only person displaying violence was Heard. Whitney says that's not true. She says Heard punched Depp in her defense. She says she saw the punch. Well, that's literally what was asked of you, but okay. Miss Henriquez says it's not correct that neither she nor Heard were injured in the incident. Miss Laws asks what the references in her statement are to, and Heard says started to tell her in 2013 about assaults. Miss Laws says that is a lie, and Miss Henriquez disagrees. Side note, I'm sure, because it's Sky News, they're not going to give the whole story, but I'm curious to know, does Whitney stand by what Amber said about Johnny beating them up with his cast? And side note, the pictures came out, it doesn't look like a hard cast, it looks like a soft cast, so it's just not possible for him to beat on them with that kind of cast. So Whitney says she had a falling out with her sister because they thought that she had sold photos of their wedding to the press, even though Whitney denies that she actually did that. But after they thought that, they actually had kicked Whitney out of the apartment. Miss Laws asks Whitney if she's now a part of Heard's inner circle again, and she says yes, she's my sister and also one of my best friends. And Miss Laws asks about the time the sisters were estranged in 2015, and she agrees that she was not in Heard's inner circle or social circle. Then they move on to the painting incident, which is in the statement dated 8th of March 2013. She says she received a phone call at work to try to help deal with Johnny. Her statement says when she arrived, it was immediately apparent to me that Amber was upset and had been crying. Her face was swollen, but at that stage, I didn't know he had been physical with her. I noticed one side of her face was super red, and she had what looked like a split lip, and I remember thinking to myself, that's not from crying. But there was so much going on. The task at hand was to calm Johnny down and de-escalate it to get him out of there, so it really wasn't the right time to ask her, and if I had, it would have sent him off further. I remember thinking I needed to ask her that about it later. She says it was finally established that the argument was over a painting by Tasia Van Ray, and she was the one that finally persuaded Depp to leave the house to go film a documentary with Keith Richards. Whitney says it was only after this incident that she knew there was physical violence. She writes, it was only sometime after this, but after we traveled to London in September 2013 that I confronted her about a mark on her face. It was only after that she started admitting to me that he had hit her when I would confront her about a mark or bruise I saw. Miss Laws put it to her that in describing this alleged incident, she has merged two separate incidents, which Whitney disagrees to. And Miss Laws also says Miss Henriquez has previously said Heard hadn't met Keith Richards by 20th of March. Miss Laws is now honing on the date that this incident is alleged to have happened on. It has now changed. Earlier in her evidence this week, Heard said she now believed the incident happened later in March and not 8th of March as previously stated. Miss Laws is saying that the original date of the 8th was adopted because it was linked to a text between Depp and Heard that referred to a disco bloodbath on 12th March. Heard said that the text was talking about the incident 4 days later. Ms. Henriquez says she is unsure how she came to the date of 8th of March as the initial date for the incident. Ms. Henriquez says she doesn't accept that she was fabricating evidence with Heard. She says, I would have relied on my own memory and text messages, etc. to get to that conclusion. It says Heard, we now go back to the day before this court case started, the 6th of July. Heard gave a 7th statement on this date and told the court she was changing the date she said the painting incident happened. Ms. Henriquez says she was not aware of this and has not been across every stage of this. Here is what Heard said in that statement. While reviewing this material, I have been able to identify the dates of two incidents of violence that took place in March 2013. As I explained in my earlier statements, there were numerous incidences of violence in March 2013 which coincided with Johnny's drug use. I now realize that the incident I had initially described as having taken place on 8th of March 2013 took place on 22nd March 2013. There was a separate incident on 8th of March 2013. The incident I describe involving the painting took place on 22nd March 2013, which is apparent from the photographs now at tab 148, which showed Johnny's cocaine in my kitchen at my house on Orange, and was on one of the days Johnny was due to be filming a documentary with Keith Richards. So how convenient that Whitney is now changing her statement to align with Amber Heard's statement. How very convenient. Then, and Ms. Henriquez says this is the first time she has seen this statement. Ms. Law says, you have been at this court case every day. Are you asking us to believe you have only realized you got this date wrong when you entered this witness box at 2 p.m. today? Whitney says she only realized very recently. She says that this was going after texts between herself and Depp's assistant, Nathan Holmes. Then they go refer to that picture of the cocaine on the table, which Ms. Laws says Heard has relied on this photo to establish the bloodbath incident. The photo shows lines of cocaine and what looks like a tampon applicator, which Whitney agrees it looks like a tampon applicator. That's what you use to snort cocaine, isn't it? Ms. Laws adds. When I did cocaine, yes, answers Ms. Henriquez. Ms. Laws puts it to Ms. Henriquez that this photograph is a setup. A skull and crossbone box which says property of Johnny Depp can also be seen on the table. Ms. Henriquez agrees she can see the lines of cocaine and the box. Ms. Henriquez says the drugs and tampon applicator were all hers. She adds, Johnny was fond of that trick, referring to the use of the tampon applicator, which Miss Henriquez says she passed on to Depp. Okay, so you admit that those are your drugs, but Amber Heard was just going off about saying how, look, we caught Johnny red-handed, but now you're saying that it's your drugs. Okay, so does that mean that Amber is just busted falsifying evidence? Because that's what it kind of sounds like to me. When referring to the picture of Whitney and Amber with Johnny Depp and Keith Richards in regards to the changing of the dates, Ms. Law says this is a really important piece of evidence. She says the story would fall apart if the date of the disco bloodbath incident had not been changed, and then it's ridiculous to say Heard has a damaged face in the photo. Ms. Henriquez disagrees and says when she looks at the photo, she sees makeup and a split lip. Then they look at a chain of emails. The judge is asking for some guidance from Ms. Henriquez as to which way to read the sequence of messages which are about the Van Ray picture. There is a message from Depp. Then it seems Ms. Henriquez sent the photo of the picture defacing to Depp. This was sent a year after the Keith Richards film set visit. In the text, Depp calls Van Ray a vulture, and Ms. Henriquez says, oh yes, she's the worst. Ms. Law says Ms. Henriquez has added in detail completely by mistake from this incident into the other alleged painting incident when Heard alleges Depp tried to set fire to another Van Ray painting. Ms. Henriquez says it was a mistake and she merged the two incidences unintentionally. Ms. Law says the mistake happened because it was a fabrication. Ms. Henriquez refutes that. Side note, it is a bit disrespectful, to have your ex's paintings up in your new house. You know what I mean? So if he didn't like that, I can definitely see where he's coming from, and nothing about that has anything to do with abuse. So we're back at it, and Ms. Henriquez tells the court, I did not remember at the time that it was two separate paintings. Ms. Law says what you were doing was putting in a detail based on this text exchange to embellish your account, which Ms. Henriquez, Whitney, disagrees. Ms. Law says you were asserting it was something Ms. Heard says, and goes on to say it was actually taken from the email exchange a year before. Ms. Law says you have lied to support your sister. Ms. Henriquez says I disagree. I have not lied. Then we are back to the staircase incident and Whitney's statement regarding it. In the statement, Whitney says Depp and Heard called her marriage counselor as she lived next door, and that she and Depp called one another brother and sister. She says she was woken up on the night of 9th of March 2015 and went into Depp and Heard's penthouse 5. She says what she saw when she went in was extremely shocking. She says she saw Depp throw a can of Red Bull, which hit his nurse, Debbie Lloyd. She says she was standing with her back to Depp and at the top of the stairs in between him and Heard. The statement reads, I remember being worried that I was near the edge of the top of the stairs. When he got to the top of the stairs, he was pulling me backwards so he could get to Amber. I remember being scared because I was worried that I would fall backwards and fall down the stairs. Johnny reached out to shove me out of the way to lunge at Amber, reaching out to try to hit Amber, and instead struck me, hitting me in the arm. Amber suddenly lurched forward and hit him and said, Don't hit my sister. I didn't see exactly how Amber hit him, but it didn't seem especially hard. It was just enough for him to lose momentum. She was just trying to protect me, and I think it probably stopped me from being pushed down the stairs. There was a struggle with me stuck in the middle of it, and he really went for Amber. Somehow I was pushed out of the way so I wasn't between them, but I was standing right there next to them when Johnny grabbed her by the hair with one hand, and I saw him punch her really hard in the head with his other hand multiple times. I was trying to push my way in between them to stop Johnny from hitting Amber when Travis, Johnny's security guard, stepped in to pull them apart. The security guards had been at the bottom of the staircase, only then they intervened. We were separated, and I immediately took Amber back into my... Miss Laws is putting it to Miss Henriquez that the statement is very detailed, but what is omitted is the most important detail of it all. She says Depp had a bright green cast on his hand at the time, and there is no mention of this. Miss Henriquez says Depp did have a cast on his hand, but she did remember it had dinosaurs on it. She adds, but I don't think that that's the most important detail. The pictures came out from the cast. Let's see if I can find it, but it doesn't look like a hard cast. It looks like a soft cast. So someone with a busted hand, it's just not possible. Like, you have one functioning hand because you're not able to, because obviously she says he grabbed her hair and then punched her. So if your hand is in that cast, it's so that it cannot move. So it would be physically impossible because he would have only had use of one of his hands. So that's a blatant lie. Whitney says, the first important detail for me was that it was the first time I had seen physical violence from Depp towards Heard, and that was what was memorable for me. Miss Henriquez says she has witnessed Depp being violent to other people before. Miss Laws says she has thrown that in. She says she has never seen Heard being violent towards anyone, adding, we tussled as kids. Has she ever hit you, Miss Laws asks. No, answers Whitney. Are you afraid of your sister? Miss Laws adds. No, I'm not, says Whitney. Are you cautious of her? asks Miss Laws. No, says Whitney. Miss Laws is now asking Miss Henriquez if she saw Heard throwing things at Depp during the incident. Henriquez says she was in her PJs and she didn't have any of her belongings, adding she doesn't even drink Red Bull, which funnily enough is exactly the words that Amber used. And you don't have to drink something to throw it at somebody. You don't have to eat. You just don't. That has nothing to do with whether or not it's plausible that she could have thrown it at him. Then Whitney talks about what happened after Johnny kicked her out. She said that she had nowhere to go and she was sleeping on her boss's floor. And she talks about going back to the apartment to pick up some of her things. It reads, I remember seeing that a bed was disheveled. It had a very heavy wood frame, and I noticed it had splintered, and there was chip in the wood. There was blonde hair and blood stuck in the splinter on the bed frame. I had not heard about the fight on 15th December 2015 at that point, because Amber and I were not speaking at that time, but I was immediately alarmed. I remember imagining what kind of force it would take to do that, because it was such a heavy and solid frame. So, side note, it sounds like she would have had reason to obviously hate him for kicking her out. So that could be a thing. Then they talk about Coachella after Heard's 30th birthday. Miss Laws asks who was sick during the trip. I was, answers Whitney, adding I was pregnant. Miss Henriquez says Amber was unwell at the festival but was not sick. Miss Henriquez confirms Heard had drunk alcohol and taken MDMA. She disputes that Heard smoked marijuana on the trip. Earlier in the case, we heard evidence from Depp security guard Starling Jenkins, who said he saw Heard being sick in the car park. In her evidence, Heard said he had mixed up her and her sister. The court is now hearing a message exchange between Heard and her friend, Io Tillett-Wright, who will be on stand tomorrow. In it, Heard is saying how ill she was during the Coachella trip, and that she had had convulsions. Miss Laws says again, It was Amber who vomited, wasn't it? Again, Whitney says no, it was Amber. So again, Whitney says no, it was her who had vomited. The text message exchange also refers to some major shit going on between Miss Henriquez and Miss Heard. Miss Henriquez says she thinks that might be in reference to her own pregnancy. Again, Miss Henriquez says no, it was her who vomited. The text exchange also refers to some major shit going on between Miss Henriquez and Heard. Miss Henriquez says she might think that might be in reference to her own pregnancy. Miss Laws asks, do you agree your sister is someone who needs to be calmed down? And Whitney agrees. If she's upset, we all need to be. And then Miss Laws goes on to say, now you are friends again with your sister. You're doing your best to throw her a lifeline because you are the only person who can say they saw violence between her and Depp, which Whitney disagrees to. And that marks the end of court. So today we saw Whitney confirm that that was her cocaine on the table, not Johnny's. So I don't know. I guess that proves that Amber was lying, falsifying, or it's Whitney conveniently changing her statement to reflect the same date as Amber. Definitely sounds to me like they colluded on that. They must have had a discussion and before Whitney took the stand to do that. But yeah, Whitney will be back tomorrow, so we'll hear more on her statement. So, but I guess that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed watching and listening, and I won't be able to give an update till probably next week, but I will be back, and hopefully the audio is better. I changed the setting on the mic, so let's hope so. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the kind comments and all the support. So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you all have a good one, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you. Bye.